Hey, how's that for an intro? Gotta be one of my dumbest ones, right? I actually don't know how I'm gonna get this out of the way. Hang on. In my last video, I said ignore the mosquito netting, but this time I thought I'd embrace it. It's not even mosquito netting. Let's not even call it mosquito netting. Let's call it a romantic canopy. Anyway, greetings from Africa. It's actually a pretty cloudy day here. Shockingly little sunlight to work with, but I'm doing my best. And today's video is about The Talents of Mr. Ripley by Patricia Highsmith. A novel that I was interested in reading because I love the movie that came out in 1999 with Matt Damon as Tom Ripley, Jude Law as Dickie, Gwyneth Paltrow as Marge, Philip Seymour Hoffman's in it, there's Cate Blanchett. It's a star-studded cast, and it's honestly one of my favorite movies ever. It didn't used to be that way. I watched it for the first time years ago, and it didn't really leave that much of an impression on me, except for the ending. I thought the ending was incredible. And so that led me to rewatch it a couple of times, and every time I did, I loved it more and more and more. So now it's one of my favorites, honestly. I think it's just tremendous, but it's actually not the first adaptation of this book. The first adaptation came out relatively recently. I mean, relatively recent to when the book was published. 1960, there was a French language adaptation called Purple Noon, I think. I also watched that one. Didn't like that one at all. Wasn't nearly as good as the 1999 one, in my opinion. And at this point, frankly, there's a veritable cinematic universe for Ripley because there was another movie in 2002 with John Malkovich, actually, as Tom Ripley, which I didn't like either. And then, just last year, there was a whole mini-series on, I think, Netflix that was like black and white with Adam Scott, just called Ripley. I have no idea whether or not that's worth watching. If you have any experience with it, let me know what you thought about it. I'd be interested in checking it out if a bunch of people say it's good. I don't know, though. It seems like it takes itself really, really seriously, which is always a red flag for me. But anyway, yes, big fan of the movie. I was looking forward to reading the book, but honestly, if I'm going to be honest, I was really looking forward to reading the book with somebody. But that and a bunch of other things that I was looking forward to fell through inexplicably recently. So it's been a pretty difficult and heartbreaking week for me here in Africa, I'm not going to lie. But I got to read the book on my own, and I get to talk to my imaginary booktube friends about it, so I'm fine. But in addition to that, the book, I think, this is a really good case study of an instance in which I believe the movie iterates and builds on the original source material a lot, and actually is much more successful, much more interesting, and just much more enjoyable than the original source material was. I really do think that the book walked so that the movie could run, because I was just shocked at how good of a job the movie does at taking all of these building blocks that are there in the book, but reading into the latent potential that is there within those building blocks, and then just bringing all that out and making characters in the book that were already, pretty interesting and pretty unique and cool, and then just taking that and just pulling all of the potential out of it, and so that these characters just become stunning. I think Matt Damon does a great job as Tom Ripley. I think Jude Law does an unbelievable job as Dickie. I think Marge, we'll talk about Marge. I have to talk about Marge in the movie, played by Gwyneth Paltrow. There's the character of Freddy, played by Philip Seymour Hoffman, who is only on screen for, 5 consecutive minutes throughout the movie, but those 5 minutes are some of the most glorious minutes in the movie, and he takes this character that's in the book and just pulls every bit of drama out of the little time that he has to affect the story, and does such an incredible job. It's amazing. So that's really the thesis of this video, is that you should watch the movie if you haven't, or if you're like me and you watched it once before and were kind of lukewarm on it, watch it again. It's amazing. It's such a great movie. But they both follow the general same arc, which is you've got Tom Ripley. Tom Ripley, the main thing you need to know about Tom Ripley, he's a con artist, he's a confidence man, he's a petty cook living in New York, in a kind of seedy underbelly of New York. He hates his life, he hates himself, he wants to be sophisticated and fashionable and cool, but he can't really live that given his conditions, his material conditions in New York. And he's really good at impersonating people. The movie does such a good job of showing his sort of impersonation abilities because he is able to adopt the characteristics of other people because he actually typically wants to live their life. He doesn't want to live his own life. He idolizes people, or he fetishizes their lifestyle, and so he is able to sort of be a chameleon and add colors to the chameleon. Anyway, he kind of is able to imitate the people that he wants to be. And so at the beginning of the movie, you see him wearing a Princeton jacket, even though he never really went to Princeton. And this ends up leading him into the crossing paths with Herbert Greenleaf, who is a rich shipping tycoon in New York and thinks that Tom Ripley is friends with his son, Dickie Greenleaf, who happens to be bumming around in Italy. And Herbert Greenleaf wants to enlist Tom Ripley to get his son back to him, convince his son to come back to the U.S. And he says, I'll pay for your entire, I'll foot the bill for the entire trip. You can go to Italy and you can, on my dime, and I just want you to convince my son to come back to be near his family, especially because his mother is also dying of cancer. And of course, Tom Ripley takes Herbert Greenleaf up on that offer, takes a trip by boat over to Italy, ends up contriving a reason to run into Dickie. Dickie is, of course, living in Italy, but he is also spending a lot of time with a character by the name of Marge, who we'll get into. But he runs into Dickie and is immediately starstruck by the guy. I mean, immediately turns Dickie into some kind of idol. Immediately worships the ground he walks on, is immediately attracted to him, wants to be him. I love how the movie, the minute he gets off the boat in Italy, he starts introducing himself as Dickie Greenleaf. Not for any big plan or reason, but just because, again, he wants to be this fashionable, cool guy so badly that he's just immediately adopting the personality or adopting the sort of social cachet of somebody else by using somebody else's name. But yes, Dickie is everything that Tom wants to be in life, everything that Tom wants the approval of, and that leads to a fascinating situation where he tries to ingratiate himself into Dickie's life while he's also trying to placate Dickie's father by making it seem like he's convincing Dickie to come back, even though at the beginning of their relationship, the two of them are dead set on that not happening. Tom wants to stay in Italy with Dickie, and Dickie has no plans of going back to the U.S. regardless of what Tom's plans are. So that's the foundation for the story, and it's fascinating. And I'll get in a little bit more into what happens because I have to, and because I don't necessarily think it's a spoiler. But I do love that setup because what ends up happening is that Dickie, or Tom is so enamored with Dickie that he ends up pushing things too far. The problem with Dickie is that he's capricious, he's extremely selfish, he's very, well, I mean, capricious really kind of sums it up because he's sort of all for Tom one moment and not interested and bored by him the next, basically because he's a spoiled brat. That's what I love about the movie so much, is that they include a subplot that isn't in the book at all, involving one of Dickie's mistresses, which helps move the plot forward a lot, but also shows that there are real consequences to Dickie's actions. And the way that he uses people and manipulates people is pretty sick and disgusting. But nevertheless, he's incredibly charming. People love him. They love being around him. Obviously, Tom loves being around him. And that leads to a scene in which the two of them are in a boat far away from the mainland, and Tom has a serious dressing down by Dickie, where Dickie basically tells Tom everything that Tom doesn't want to hear. Basically tells him, "You're a leech, and you know that." And it's so bad. He calls Tom boring. He, basically tells Tom everything that Tom doesn't want to hear. And Tom's psyche in that moment, cracks. He just can't handle it, and he grabs an oar, and he hits Dickie over the head, and he ends up killing him. Now, in the book, this scene is much more premeditated. So the movie kind of turns it on its head and makes it into a scene where the crime itself is sort of a crime of passion, which I think is a change that is brilliant. Watching Tom have to suffer through listening to his idol say everything to him that he's been sort of latently feeling, but nevertheless doesn't want to address and doesn't want to imagine that Dickie is actually feeling. Actually hearing him say that and watching the expression on his face and how much it just, how much it just destroys him is just so sad. It's just so sad, but it's also just so well done. And it's so much more interesting, I think, than how the book does it, which is, again, a much more premeditated thing. But Dickie ends up dead in the book and in the movie in the exact same way, hit over the head with the oar. Tom ends up sinking the boat along with Dickie's body, making it to shore, and then becoming Dickie, taking over Dickie's life, going under his name, using his passport, taking out all of Dickie's money in his name, forging his signature, signing checks with that, and basically living a double life. He is Tom to people who know him as Tom, but he is Dickie to everyone else. That's the foundation for the story. It's a wonderful foundation to build off of, and I think, again, the movie does such a great job of taking that original source material and doing so much with it. I think that the way that Jude Law plays Dickie is just so intoxicating. He takes up a good hour of the movie, and every time he's on screen, the funny thing about him is that he's so charming, but he's also so mean, too. He's consistently mean. And again, acts like a spoiled rich kid the whole time. And that leads us to the character of Dickie, which is another great example, or not Dickie, we've been talking about Dickie. It leads me to the character of Freddy, which is another, I think, perfect example of how the movie iterates on what's in the book, because in the book, the character of Freddy is hardly really significant at all. Basically, he's Tom's foil. He's everything that Tom isn't. He was born into wealth, and so much so, and because he's been around wealth his entire life, he's just bored by it. He doesn't really care about wealth in the way that Tom does at all, who idolizes it, worships it, and is, of course, desperate for all the trappings of wealth and success, because to him, that's what life is. That's what makes life worth living. But because of that, Freddy is able to see that Tom is basically a phony from the jump. That Tom is trying to fit in with a crowd that he cannot fit in with at all, because he does not have that sort of innate wealth that makes him sort of nihilistic about it, or at least completely dispassionate about it. And so in the movie, watching him getting shouldered out of Dickie's life because of Freddy is so sad. It's so sad. The scene where he gets pushed out of the record booth is so well done, and it's so depressing to see him, sort of in that situation. But I just bring that up because I think that what Philip Seymour Hoffman does in that role is just incredible. The way he imitates Dickie in that one scene where he says, what does he say? Tom gives Dickie direction, or Freddy directions to something, and he says, it's on the Della Croce, just off the Corso. And then Freddy goes, is it on the Della Croce, just off the Corso? It's just so funny. It's one of my favorite moments in the movie. Sorry, I'm rambling a lot. I don't have a script or anything for this video. I'm just trying to bring up moments that I think that the movie builds off of the book really well. And I think one of the most obvious examples, really the biggest elephant in the room as far as that goes, is the character of Marge. Because Marge in the book is so much less than she is in the movie. She's so much less than she is in the movie. In the movie inverts the relationship between Tom and Marge. So in the book, they start out as very antagonistic with each other, and then in a weird way, Marge kind of becomes friends with Tom, or at least she's like kind of cool with Tom. But in the movie, they flip that, where they start out as pals, and they start out as really good pals. I love their relationship at the beginning of the movie, where she looks at Tom and says, the thing about Dickie is that when he pays attention to you, it's like the sun is shining on you and it's very warm, but then he forgets about you and it becomes very cold. And Tom is like, yeah, I'm learning that. But anyway, they have this sort of mutual affection for Tom, or for Dickie, which kind of, in a way, brings them together at the beginning of the book, especially because Marge has no idea what's really going on in Tom's mind. But she starts to figure that out as the movie progresses. And all of a sudden, that leads to this growing antagonism between her and Tom that I think is so great to watch. And it makes her such an interesting character and also such a heartbreaking character. The scene where she is standing outside of Tom, or who she thinks is Dickie's apartment, and she says, "You broke my heart, and I don't know why." And it's just such a great moment. It's such a great moment, and it captures exactly what is so difficult about heartbreak, in the sense that you don't have that closure and you don't know why. She says earlier in the movie, you don't just break up with people. She can't even wrap her mind around really what's going on, and she's just confused and hurt the whole time. And it's a great exploration of that feeling, because it does happen that way. You oftentimes feel like you lack that closure. Somebody just decides to cut you off. Someone just decides to break up with you, and you don't understand why. They decide to block you for some reason that you don't understand why, and it affects you tremendously. Not just because you lose somebody that you care about, but also because you don't understand why you're in that situation. And she portrays that feeling perfectly. It's amazing. And then that obviously catapults us into the ending of the movie, where she unravels in such a wonderful and such a convincing way. And in a way that is not in the book at all. I obviously don't want to spoil it. You'll have to experience it for yourself. But the way that she unravels and the way that she starts figuring things out and piecing things together is just incredible. She has this wonderful intuition about things that she doesn't have in the book at all. In the book, she's as dense as wood glue. I mean, she just does not get anything. But in the movie, she's so much more aware of what's going on and so much has such a great intuition about things, and it just makes her character so much more interesting. So anyway, I'm sorry for rambling videos. I don't have the energy in me right now to edit things together and make a big sort of artistic statement about this. But if you watch this far, I really appreciate it, and I would definitely recommend that you watch the movie if you think any of that is intriguing, or if you've seen it before and you are it didn't leave as much of an impression on you. I would definitely recommend that you watch it again, because I think the movie is just great. As far as the book goes, I think the book is interesting, but I'm not going to give it as nearly a hearty recommendation because, frankly, as I said ad nauseum throughout the video, I think the movie is a lot better. And so I think that if you're interested in the movie, watch that first and then maybe do what I did and go back and read the book, because it is interesting to compare the two. I'll leave it there for now, though. Thanks for watching, and I will hopefully be back with a better video soon.